Before we start, let's go back to October 2008. On a information sharing platform called Medstoud, an unknown individual by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper. The paper's name was a Bitcoin, a secure peer-to-peer digital cash system. The paper was well received, and the first version of Bitcoin, Bitcoin 0.1, was published in January 2009. Bitcoin wasn't the first attempt at making a digital currency, however. It was the first attempt that solved the double spending problem. So it couldn't be spent. So one coin couldn't be spent twice. This made people realize that Bitcoin had a future, and it was well received, invested in, and well, everybody knows about it right now. Let's go to now, current times. Bitcoin is known by everyone, and there are more and more cryptocurrencies arriving in the world every day. Over 1,300 cryptocurrencies are currently accepted as being valid. The world of crypto is paradoxically very well known and not very well known because everybody knows about crypto, everybody knows what they are, everybody knows someone that invests in them, but nobody truly knows what they are and how they exist and what we can actually do with them. That is why we're honored to have Mr. Yasu and Mr. Prevo on stage today to ask the questions about how a world looks like with crypto accepted as the full currency, whether they can actually be a currency or whether they're just an asset, and which crypto might be the one to rule them all, or whether we need a completely different outlook on our financial system. During the interview, you have the ability to ask questions. When that moment arrives, Olivier there will walk to you with a microphone, and he will give it to you, and you can ask your question. Due to time constraints, we ask you to keep that question as concise as possible, because we only have an hour, and we want to finish the entire interview. Thank you very much. Now, with a round of applause, please welcome Mr. Yasu and Mr. Prevo.
So welcome on my behalf.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome on stage.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Prevo, you worked at the European Central Bank to investigate cryptocurrencies, and now you invest in them yourself. Why do you think people are so enthusiastic about cryptocurrencies?
So, first of all, thank you for having me here. I was working at the European Central Bank as a supervisor, and there was a small group of people, about 10 people, who were working on blockchain. We're working on all this new technology, including the possibility, let's say, of cryptocurrencies and what that would entail for the system. And at the time, this was a secret group. Now it's all public. Everybody knows. But I think already at the time, the European Central Bank could, certain people at least saw that this would be the nemesis. And a lot of people now see it as something that could really enable and empower people to really have very, very quick transactions. I think that's the very first aspect that people really like, to send transactions all over the globe within 10 seconds or a few minutes, according to which currency you use. In the beginning, this was very much true that people saw it as a nemesis for the central bank, and saw it as an opportunity to bypass all the governments and bypass all the central banks. But right now, I think people see it more as an enabler and empowerment for people to gain financial liberation in terms of the speed of transfer, not just the speculation aspect. And I think people see it as a way to do it in a way that is can be trusted, can be non-fraudulent. I think that's the two most important aspects.
It has a lot of potential and possibilities. Mr. Yasu, you started Alice, an information sharing platform. Why is blockchain and cryptocurrency the perfect basis for such a platform?
I see. With cryptocurrency and blockchain, we can change the way of developing the service. Before I worked at Recruit Company Limited, which is parent company of Indeed. All employees aim to maximize the revenue for stakeholders. But in cryptocurrency industry, we can aim the same value. In the case of Bitcoin, people try to prevent fraud and using it frequently is what make value to Bitcoin. And in case of Alice, people try to create trustworthy articles and find them, and then they can get Alice tokens as a reward. So we can aim the same goal to maximize the value of that ecosystem using blockchain and cryptocurrencies. That's why I created this media in this industry. Yeah.
All right. Well, as we can see, you're both fully invested in cryptocurrency, and they've made you both pretty rich.
No, not solely. Not solely.
To what extent do you think that your personal gain inhibits you to be objective towards blockchain and cryptocurrency, Mr. Preve?
Well, what do you mean by objective?
Well, it seems like you're more positive due to your own financial gain and your own positive experience with Bitcoin. So how can you be more, doesn't it inhibit your ability to be as critical as you could have been without that positive experience?
Well, I think for many people, like me, it's the opposite. So what happened was, for me, I heard from a colleague who says, blockchain is hotter than the sun. And they've been talking to the investment banks, and they've been marketing it and everything. And I was very skeptical at first. And then, because I saw the opportunity, and I read as much as I could about it in a very short time of space, as a lot of people do who are getting to know this invention for the first time, then I decided to put whatever money I had, which wasn't very much at all, but I put it all in. And that's sort of the opposite. So I think for me, it really was the opposite. And I still am very, very skeptical. I hope this is going well.
It may be my mic is going wrong.
But
Okay.
I hope it's okay.
Let me wait a second before.
Okay.
Yeah? No one breathe. Yeah?
It seems, yeah? All right.
Okay, kind of.
So I think that skepticism remains. That's the main essence. The people in this community are all very open, very cooperative, very supportive. But as this is code, in essence, the only way code improves is by being very, very critical of each other. So that is sort of built in, I would say. And I'm definitely very much skeptical on a technical level or on a technology level. And that is what's going to fundamentally help, because in the end, all these cryptocurrencies are going to be valued according to their utility. So that's going to be the end, goal. So as long as that utility is safeguarded, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
But fair enough. But everyone who seems to know a lot about blockchain and cryptocurrency is also invested in them. And it could be that way, but Mr. Yasu, don't you think that has any impact on their ability to be critical at this technology?
Sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Well, is the fact that a lot of people are invested, everyone who knows a lot about this technology is invested in this technology, does this impair their ability to look with a critical mind to this technology?
Yeah. I think partly yes. Yeah. In Japan, actually, many people are investing in cryptocurrency now, and you can also hear about that. People talking about cryptos even on trains or in cafes. So I think it's crazy. I think they all talking about Bitcoin's price, such as like it's eyes up or it's down. The price is down like this. But the interesting is everyone is becoming to watch cryptocurrency not only in investment perspective, but also people think Bitcoin will change this world in technology prospects. So it's very good. The situation is become very in good situation in Japan now. Yeah.
So, whether a coin is successful or not.
Oh, your mic is off, I think.
Okay, just scream.
I'll just have to shout.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Whether a coin or not, whether a coin is successful or not, seems to be fully random. Mr. Prevo, how is investing in cryptocurrency any different from playing a game of roulette?
So, yeah, I think a lot of people compare it to the casino, putting everything on black or red. The thing is that what you see right now is obviously a lot of speculation, and speculation is not a very, very healthy thing for the long term. You know, it's still so much speculation,
Yeah.
and that's not what's going to be very, very interesting in the long term, because somebody's going to get hurt, and you know, bubbles pop all the time basically within the crypto space. And what you see now is very interesting is that once a token rises, there's a very high chance of the whole market rising. So what is really the added value of one cryptocurrency when actually the whole market is just rising? And that's what's going to be different at the end of this year. You know, you will see tokens rise much more because of intrinsic value, because of their idiosyncratic added value compared to the whole market. And that's already starting to differentiate right now, and that's going to change. So it's different from the casino because it has this utility within the token that will be reflected in the price. And the reason for that is that you know, anybody who says it's a Ponzi scheme or a casino game, tell that to the person who's able to send money across the globe in 10 seconds without friction and without costs. So that's already the first utility value as it was intended, you know, originally with Bitcoin. Right now, there are many, many more purposes, such as, you know, identity management, you know, all the integrity of the network that is now fully secure in a good blockchain, you know. All the problems we see right now with the decreased trust in institutions are partly derived because they are hacked, because the security is not good, because there are so many aspects that needed to get improved, because there's so much incentive right now to attack those very, you know, we call them single point of failures, but those centers of data, those centers of in the end what's going to derive them power, money, all these other things. So this was really an invention, what many people don't realize, you know, decades in the making. This was decades in the making, and now it's finally realized, but that's why it's different from the casino. There's a utility value there that that people use. It's not the money that makes it worth it, it's the use of the network that makes the price.
There's at this point there's a lot of different cryptocurrencies, and but indeed, as you said, there's only a few, or only maybe even one that will actually emerge to be successful. How, as an investor, do you assess if one has a future, if a coin has a future?
Well, you look at it from all angles. But the most important one, which is about 50 or 60% of your decision, is going to be the technology. So does it make sense technological? And the brain and the heart at the same time of a blockchain is consensus. And just like human beings, we all have brains that work slightly different. And with all the blockchains, it's the same thing. All the consensus mechanisms are slightly different. And you look at it because that determines the security, that determines the scalability, that determines the purpose, that determines so many aspects of what we deem valuable, and that's going to be your first thing to go to, understand that consensus mechanism of that blockchain. And secondly, what you do is
What do you mean with the consensus mechanism?
So that as I mentioned, it's sort of it's a bit of technical, but it's sort of the brain of a blockchain. So it's the way that all the different nodes, all the different entities that safeguard the security of a blockchain verify the transactions that are going on and validate them. So you have many types of consensus mechanism. Actually, with Alice, you have a very separate one as well.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's sort of the engine of a car. You know, if you know what the engine is that drives the car, you will know how that car sort of drives, together with all the other aspects.
So can you only invest in cryptocurrencies if you know the technology, if you can understand the mechanism?
Well, anyone who really says, you know, I understand everything, you can fully distrust them, because it's so, you know, there's so much going on, so much information. But I would definitely see that as a prerequisite for investing large amounts, let's say. You can't invest blindly within something that you don't understand, that accounts for the equity market, that accounts for everything. So to understand the blockchain is to understand its technology a little bit at least, to feel safe with investing. The second part is obviously the normal ones, the team, the business purpose, the audience, etc. So those are all the other aspects. Yeah.
I've heard that if your cab driver advises you to invest in something, you're absolutely in a bubble. How many cab drivers have advised you to invest in cryptocurrency?
Yeah, quite a few. I was at a meeting last night, and interestingly enough, there was the security guy who was opening the door, and I was coming for a meetup on cryptocurrencies actually, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's great. I've invested as well." I'm like, okay. Then I started to get sweaty. And that was obviously, the sign that if everybody just wants to jump in without understanding, normally that's a risk. What was different here, though, is that it's a currency still. It can be used at least as a currency. So before, we've always seen equity, but now it's a currency that's existing, that's global. So, it is here to stay, and it'll grow, even if a bubble pops in between.
Bitcoin, one of the most stable cryptocurrencies, still fluctuates by about 60% per week. Mr. Yasu, do you think this extreme volatility is only an early-stage disease? Or
what?
do you think this extreme volatility of at least 60% per week is just an early-stage disease or something intrinsic in cryptocurrency?
Actually, the Bitcoin's volatility is really high at this time, but I believe that Bitcoin will be used in everywhere, and the price goes up, and the volatility will become stable. And actually, in Japan, you can use Bitcoin everywhere, like in restaurants, and even you can use it on electric retailer shops. So I think the Bitcoin's volatility is matter. It makes a problem at this time, but it will be stable near future. Yeah.
But isn't this massive volatility not proof that we actually have no idea how much cryptocurrencies are really worth?
Yeah. But in Japan, people already use Bitcoin. When you go out for drinks, some friends ask me to send the drink fee by Bitcoin, something like that. So, yeah, in Japan it's really usable.
And then one day it's twice the amount of Bitcoin than the other.
Yeah. And we don't care about volatility at now, because if you get Bitcoin from your friends as a payment, it might be up. So it's really good thing to get Bitcoin, not fiat. It's really good. So people, all my friends ask me to send the payment as Bitcoin. Yeah, like that. Okay. So
is this already happening in the Netherlands a little bit? Can you see this with colleagues and things like that?
You're starting to see it. I think you're starting to see places, Arnhem is a famous example in the Netherlands where you can spend a week without spending €1. And you can just use cryptocurrencies to pay for your hotel, your restaurant, whatever it is. There's just a lot of places where it's already enabled. I think starting, let's say next year, I believe, that the technology and the cryptocurrencies will merge. So what is going on is that cryptocurrencies are basically tokens, and they are coins on a highway, and this highway is the blockchain. And the blockchain is now being used as a layer on top of all the data that we use on the internet. So if you send an app, if you make an Instagram shot, if you post something on Facebook, it's all going on what's called TCP/IP, which is a protocol for all data in the world. And we are going to see a new protocol for blockchains that's going to be launched this year, and it's going to be adopted starting next year. And whatever you put on there, it can be €1, it can be $1, it can be Bitcoin. It will be transferred on that ledger, on that layer, on that protocol, and that will really be the enabler for where you can use these cryptocurrencies all throughout, all the developed world as well as the developing world, because you can use your normal currencies on a blockchain-like protocol, and exchange it to cryptocurrencies if you so desire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems perfect.
Yeah.
Do we have any audience questions at this time about maybe the hype or how to invest in cryptocurrencies? Go for it.
Okay, so my question is for both of you. First of all, thank you for coming here. My question is too basic. Can both of you name your favorite cryptocurrencies in terms of technologies for this year?
Let me guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I thought this question would come. I'm not going to name certain coins. I think that would be bad investment advice. What I can tell you is that technology lends itself very, very easily for payments and settlements. So the first space that's going to be conquered, is already partly conquered, is payments and settlements. The second layer, which is now being developed, is the old app space, is Ethereum and all these other app platforms. But the first space will definitely be payments and settlement. So if you invest in a currency that enables payment and settlement, that has a bit of a track record, I believe that will really help. Yeah.
Since I'm a CEO of Aristotle, so I can say the specific name as well. So I want to tell you about three things which will be very important for cryptocurrency. First is proof of stake. This is really a great technology, and it's become more popular in this year, I believe. And you can also search smart contract. There are lots of smart contract platforms, and you can also search privacy payment. I think privacy is really important. If everyone can see your transaction data, like I paid 1 Bitcoin to this restaurant, or letting 2 Bitcoin to this souvenir shop, it's really real thing, because at this time you don't have if you pay the bills, nobody can see the bill is from you. But so I think privacy is really important. So I recommend you to investigate these three technologies and find the cryptocurrency. There's only one cryptocurrency which all includes this technology. Yeah, but I can't say the name. Yeah, but there's one cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Thank you very,
yeah.
Thank you very much for the question. Mr. Yasu, cryptocurrencies are often made with a specific goal in mind and not necessarily to replace the complete monetary system. Do you think these are incremental steps to a full crypto-based society, or do you think cryptocurrency will stay in their specialized markets?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. Yeah. So I'm not certain about understanding your question correctly. So please explain me more easy words. Yeah. So I have a terrible jet lag now. So
Don't worry.
okay.
Do you think the cryptocurrency will replace money completely, or do you think that the different types of cryptocurrency will stay in their specialized markets and it won't completely change the way we value money?
I see. I think the important thing is we have to. Okay. It's really important to people. Every people invest in cryptocurrencies is really important to make cryptocurrencies more viable one than the current money. So if you invest in cryptocurrencies, you realize that the fiat money is actually how can I say, scam one. Yeah, I don't have Japanese yen at all. I all have cryptocurrency in my in my assets. My assets are all cryptocurrency now. So because if you study the history of money and bank system, it's really scam one. I don't think how many people will agree with my opinion, but I believe that. So it's really important to for people to invest on cryptocurrencies, and then people realize that this is much better than the current system, and people will use it as a payment or something.
Do you think cryptocurrency are less of a scam than fiat money has been for the past 100 years, or?
Yeah. I think at this moment, Bitcoin is much better than Japanese yen, I believe, because it's basically supported by technology, and nobody can block it. But Japanese government can easily issue the bills easily. So it's really understandable. I can understand that one. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we discuss the future in its potential to replace fiat money, Bitcoin is also seen as gold once in a while. But it's actually too volatile to be used as a hedge. It's too young to be seen as a safe haven, and not really useful as an industrial tool. Not at all useful as an industrial tool. Do you think Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general have a future as a future gold or as a replacement of gold? Mr. Prevo.
Well, Bernanke said 1 or 2 years ago, what is gold? Why do we have gold? Why do we all invest in gold? And he famously answered, it's tradition, which is one of the worst answers you can give, I believe, because there goes your credibility a little bit, because tradition means something else for everyone. But in financial terms, it's now regarded as a safe haven. And to basically complement what he just mentioned is the current system, which works quite well in many, many regards, does have a single point of failure, which is our central bank. And I was working at a central bank, so I was part of that single point of failure. But it works very well as long as the trust in that institution is safeguarded. The thing is that with the blockchain is that it's decentralized, it's distributed. So all this trust is part of many, many different, let's say, central banks, which validate. So in that sense, this is more secure. And that's sort of a far-fetched thing to think about, to say that the blockchain is more secure than the current monetary central bank system. Yeah. But purely from that perspective, it actually is. So I do, complement that view in that sense. But it is a young technology, and there's still a lot of things that need to be figured out. So I believe it is quite secure.
But our central banks play a huge role in our economy. They make sure that at this point they have the ability to shorten our crises. But we lose that ability if we implement cryptocurrencies as a fiat money.
Right. So the central bank does have a lot of tools that they can use that are at our disposal, which are very, very useful. We can combat inflation. We can do a lot of things on the monetary side, on the supervisory side. And the thing is, I believe they will coexist. I believe that the central bank will have no choice but to do two things. They will need to adopt the technology, and they will need to adapt the technology. And once those two things are in place, they can really coexist very, very well. And of course, currently they have this immense amount of power, but why do they have that? Because we lend it to them. We, as a society, as citizens, we lend, they represent our sentinels, our guardians of the monetary system. But we allow them to do that, and that goes very, very well unless there's a screw-up. And more and more you see screw-ups on the private bank side, they're being hacked. On an individual level side, they're being rogue traders. More and more risks are now being exposed, and that trust is slowly deteriorating, across the board in institutions. And this is really a way to enable that trust again, to really revive that old trust again in systems, in large organizations, because you trust the technology that has a lot less fault tolerance than we as humans have.
So how would you integrate the two? Blockchain technology or cryptocurrency with the function of a central bank?
Well, as I mentioned before, the settlement system is actually one of the best applications to use blockchain, if configured well. But you could quite easily let remittances, which is discussed in in a previous room for discussion session, but it's really, really important. You could let that be part of a blockchain and use that on the back office side of the central bank and correspondent bank architecture. And people won't really notice it, but just know that it will be very, very quick. It will be very, very safe. And people in the Netherlands don't usually realize it, but a lot of transfer of money doesn't arrive. On average, there's about 10% of money that doesn't arrive to the other person because there's so many intermediaries. And with the blockchain, you can really change that. So that will help the central bank as well, and that will help this I believe coexistence.
So we'll remain in a centralized world, but then with blockchain as a back-end system.
Yeah, I think it will be a distributed world. Central banks are not going to give up their power very easily, nor do we necessarily wish them to do so. But they do risk a lot of losing faith, a lot of their reputation, if they don't adopt and adapt.
But blockchain is this technology that was promising a decentralized system where we actually give the power back to everyone. Isn't it a pity if these large centralized organizations start integrating these things, and then we kind of give up on this dream?
Yeah, that's true. I think the true believers, the libertarians who started it all, will be shedding a tear or two. But really, the bigger point is that it should help us as a society. It shouldn't be the solution to everything, but it should be a very, very useful tool to help us. And the quickest way it will help us is to integrate it into our system. I think the people who say, well, it won't be adopted by the institutions and we should really let it bypass the central banks and the supervisory side, I think they're living a little bit in a fantasy world, and it won't be beneficial, actually. We need regulation. It will be beneficial for the long-term growth, and we do need supervision. So I think that is here to stay.
Mr. Yasu, do you believe in this vision?
I'm quite opposite of opinion because I'm young people. So yeah, I believe that we have to destroy the traditional constitution and bank system because we are made idiot by the government. I believe, yeah, especially in Japan, the government control people's mind and people's education. So yeah, especially Japanese don't speak their opinion because they are told by the government not tell your opinion. So like something like that. So I think the current world is really terrible one. So Bitcoin can change this situation a better one because the individuals can get back the power. Especially, yeah.
If you destroy the institutions, then like we mentioned before, then the banks won't have the anti-cyclical role anymore, and lending money will be difficult. How do you think that gets implemented into society if you fully trust Bitcoin?
Yeah. It's a really difficult question. So basically, the thing he says is really right thing. Yeah, I actually can agree with him, but the philosophy of Bitcoin is to give back the power to people, and it's really important for everyone to believe the philosophy of Bitcoin, so that everyone can get the value on themselves by themselves. So it's really important. So everyone have to realize that word and try to exchange their value with Bitcoin. It's really important.
But do you not think that your world is more of an ideal world, and Mr. Prevo's world is more of a pragmatic, more possible world in that sense?
For Japanese, it's really a better world to use every Bitcoin because they don't think everything by themselves. Just they are told to what they told by the government. So yeah, but yes, I believe that we should use Bitcoin. It's difficult to explain in English.
But Bitcoin has a limited market cap, so this means that the value will always continue rising.
Yeah.
This actually would mean deflation for forever until everyone. So that seems that Bitcoin, or at least the strategy of Bitcoin users, will not be possible to be implemented as fiat money. Do you think that, Mr. Prevo, is there a possibility to make a cryptocurrency that would actually replace fiat money? If they would take away that cap, that should be possible, right?
I think, well, there are countries right now that are doing that, right? They're putting their normal fiat currency and trying to put it on the blockchain. You know, there's Singapore, there's Venezuela, famously, you know, very recently. There is Estonia. There's a few countries who are trying to do that. But I think the real power there is what can you do with the blockchain that normal money can't do, and that means on a very operational day-to-day level. And the good analogy there is if you receive an email, you can forward it, or you can do a reply all, or you can slice and dice it, or you can change it. And if you have money, it's actually very, very difficult. You can't press the forward button when you go to your internet banking system. And those are all aspects that will really really help. So I think you know, it's definitely possible to replace it on the blockchain once the regulators and governments see what are the opportunities there that will help society for the better, everybody, not just, you know, a few persons, and have an inclusive approach. Once they really recognize that benefit, I think it will happen. There's just too many benefits to let it just pass by and not do it. But this is a long-term vision.
Now, with quite controversial opinions that you've been given, is there another audience question?
The middle one. The white shirt, Calvin Klein.
Is recognized.
Hi. I just had a chance to read a white paper about Alice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had the question, so I understand that it effectively solves the problem of distributing money to authors of the content, and it's a very important task because a lot of times in current systems, you can literally hire bots to download stuff that you don't like, or your competitor stuff. So my question number one is, what is your next highest priority task for this platform? Question number two, have you considered the other side of the business, a partnership with contextual or retargeting companies that basically already have the experience with machine learning and product placement and everything that they have built in order to integrate it with the platform and show the best possible ads within the content of the platform. Does it make sense?
Partially I can understand, but I will try to explain. Yeah, so it's okay. And if you don't understand what I say, so please come back and talk to me individually. Yeah, okay. Why I established ICE project is that I feel that the internet is really becoming weird one. If you Google something, you can't get correct information or the information you actually want. So I believe that we have to change internet back to the world where everyone can post and search something by themselves. So now the Google and Amazon cover the whole part of internet. So what I believe is I have to get the power back to individuals with blockchain and tokens. So that's why I established our project. And what I do is to distribute our tokens to people who create good contents and the people who find them at the very beginning. That's why I want to do. So basically, I want to realize the world with using the trustworthy people's power by token economy. So what I think becoming more important in the future is social capitalism, that you will choose the information with someone's decision who you believe the person, the reliable person's information. You believe that information. So in previous world, it's really difficult to create such world because no one wants to do that. But now we can do that with the tokens incentive, and the token price will rise because ICE platform will become more attractive one if more people will use it. So basically, what I want to realize is that it's not important to use machine learning or something like that. Just important thing to use trustworthy people's power by using tokens. It's really important. Yeah.
Your company started its own coin.
Yeah.
How is that done? What's the genesis story of a cryptocurrency?
It's really easy to create your own tokens. We created it last year May or something like that. It's easy. You create like 100 codes, and then you can create your own tokens. It's really easy to just create.
So what's the advantage of initiating the ICO as a company over traditional funding methods?
It's a really good question. With ICO, you can get lots of community as well, like the people who believe in your vision and mission. In traditional way, you can get the users first. You have to search the users who really want to sympathize with your mission. But with ICO, you can get lots of users. And Jimmy as well, he believes in our project, and he even lives in Amsterdam, but he cooperates with our project now. So that's happened with ICO.
So this international community.
Yeah.
So this seems perfect and just a little bit different from normal like crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Why are but in China and South Korea it's banned. Why are governments so afraid of ICOs?
Because there are too much scam projects. Yeah, he mentioned too many scam projects, and especially Chinese want to control their money liquidity, so they banned it, and Korea as well. But Japanese government becoming really weak now. The power of country is going down rapidly, so they don't regulate ICO or cryptocurrency at all now. Yeah.
You said that there are a lot of scams, but how can someone actually identify a trustworthy ICO?
It's easy because if you can read code, just read their GitHub first. Then you can know this is a scam or not. And then you can go into the community channel like Discord or Telegram or Slack or something like that, and then see the community's conversation. Then if they only talk about the prices of the project, the project token, then it is definitely scam. Yeah, so it's easy to recognize.
Maybe to just perhaps just shortly supplement. With crowdfunding in general, with Kickstarter and all these platforms, it's in the end all about trust. We trust Kickstarter, we trust the receiving company, and we try to put in legal systems to say if anything goes wrong and get the money back. But we're never really sure, and they're only as trustworthy as the trust we give them. So what happens with an ICO, for example, and also with anything you further do, you can embed it through a smart contract or whatever, say if this money doesn't succeed, you will get it back. And you are absolutely sure because the code is open source, the GitHub code that you mentioned. Anybody can verify that, anybody can check that. And there's so many checks and balances because this is on a grassroots approach, so that anybody can read it, anybody can see it. And from all angles it is being watched. And that gives a lot of faith for ICOs if done well, because there's no hiding, there's no legal matter necessary if the code is done well.
But do you think that already happens right now? Or because there have been kind of pump and dump strategies with people issuing an ICO, then getting a lot of money in return and never really doing what they said they would do with the money they got. So
Well, obviously there are scams.
Yeah.
There are going to be scams in any new sector, and this is one that particularly lends itself very well. And pump and dumps are something a bit different. You have the ICO scams on the one hand, and the pump and dumps on the other hand. And the ICO scams are people who say, well, there's an ICO craze going on. Let's write a white paper of 8 pages, and with that get millions. It's obviously not what we want to see, so there needs to be regulation for that. But the pump and dumps are very small markets being influenced on a financial level per se, and that's also something that will change once the liquidity becomes much higher. It's very difficult to do now to do a pump and dump on Bitcoin because it's just so massive.
Yeah.
So do you think governments, you mentioned regulation yourself, Mr. Yasso, do you think governments can protect the people from these ICO scams without banning ICOs completely?
No, I don't think so, because it's technically happens. So people, the government can't restrict the technology aspects. So you can easily put your money into the ICO project.
Should we then ban them?
Yeah. So you shouldn't ban. You can't ban the smart contract. Yeah, because it is working on the Ethereum main network. So it's really difficult to restrict all the system by government. So,
Mr. Prevo, do you think we should ban ICOs?
No. That's the short answer, no. The advantage is just far, far too big. Tokens can have many use purposes. It can be for identity verification, it can be for ownership, it can be for value, it can be for prediction markets, it can be for storage. And anybody here in the audience can launch a token within 10 minutes. You can write your own code, you can make it very complicated, but you can also say, well, I take a template and I launch it. And ICOs are nothing but saying, okay, here's my token, who wants to buy it? So on a very, very small scale level, if you start a festival, you can start your own token and know that these tokens won't get lost, you know that they won't be used fraudulently, you know many aspects that will be going very, very well because it's part of the blockchain. And on a large scale level, for identity purposes, there are still many inventions and ideas to be made, to be had, which can be useful for a blockchain, and you need an ICO for that.
Once an ICO becomes a coin, it has to be taxed. People are going to make profit out of it, of trading. It can be taxed in 3 categories: as income tax, as property tax, or as gambling tax. Which category should governments tax them under?
Well, I don't know how it is in Japan.
Yeah.
But in the Netherlands, it's part of your wealth, right? Interestingly enough, the Dutch central bank says it's not money, but the tax authority says, well, it is wealth. So they want to tax you on it, but they don't admit it's money. So I think the wealth approach is, for now, current purposes, it's sort of okay. But the thing is that not every token is created equal. So how are you going to tax something that might not be a value coin? And that's still an interesting question that needs much more answering than I can give. But for now, I think it's fair that considering the low percentages that we actually have in this country, that the government says, well, let's see, if we can at least see it as well for now, but we need to adapt and need to adopt and adapt, as I mentioned. Yeah.
A second big problem of cryptocurrency is that the government can't actually see into your digital wallet. So, Mr. Prevo, what actually keeps you from declaring only part of or none of your gains to the government to be taxed?
Because I'm an honest citizen. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people can potentially evade it. And we see that. I think that there was a survey that said about 0.04% of the US people want to declare it, which is absolutely terrible low number. But the thing is that in the long end, you can actually embed taxes into the blockchain. And actually, it's a very useful thing for supervisors and tax authorities and regulators to be able to get all the transaction data, and they can see all the tax data. Now they're asking Coinbase or whatever to hand over the files, and they are, as a former supervisor, I know that if you supervise a bank, people think, well, they just have to follow the law, they just have to do whatever you say, but they can actually hide data. So the bank can actually say, well, we don't like you, and we're only as forthcoming, even though the law says differently, as we'd like to be. So you need to keep the relationship healthy. And that's just human interaction. So what the blockchain allows you to do is just to say, well, let's extract all the information out of it and tax the people who we know have the money, because we can see that through the blockchain. It requires, what's called KYC, know your customer, but that's something that's going to be inevitable. The question is, do we want that type of society? It's going to be an Orwellian society, it's not going to be per se the best solution, but it can be done. So, right now we rely on individual honesty to pay your taxes. Not going very well in the US, but we can create a system where it's going to be systemic, where it's going to be sustainable to pay your taxes accordingly.
But in a system like that, do you not think that that entire loss of anonymity wouldn't that be a problem for most people? Like I wouldn't want all of my transactions to be visible by everyone in the bank.
Yeah. So right now what we have within the blockchain is basically a blanket approach. We say everything is private or non-private. We have these permissioned blockchains and permissionless, so they're either public or private. There's many varieties, but it accounts for the whole blockchain. What you will see in the future, and there's actually a blockchain called Cardano, which is used by the financial system, is that the security features are adapted to certain accounts. So of your account, only certain people will be able to see what you want them to see, and only certain characteristics. And the famous example is with the driver's license. So if you give somebody a driver's license, they actually see, your birth of date, many, many things, your height, many, many aspects of you that you don't necessarily need. The policeman wants to know, are you able to drive a car? And the same goes for taxes. So you can authorize them to give a little bit of your information only to certain people, and once that's possible and enabled on a large scale, that'll be interesting, because it's secure and it's safe. Yeah.
People are, if the government would want to tax you, it has to link you to your transactions, right, to your account.
Right.
So if the government can do that, then they're actually initially making a backdoor for to be able to identify you. But can't other people then do that? And wouldn't I be very easily linked to my transactions and have all my financial information online? I think that could be something that makes people not want to.
Well, you can just give your name information and say only the government authority can see it. And only the government authority can see that R3CV or whatever the public addresses are now described as, know that that's linked to you. So only the government will be able to see your name, and the other people will only be able to see other parts of the blockchain. So that becomes much more of a custom tailor-made blockchain, where certain security features are enabled for certain parts of the blockchain, and that is going to be possible. It's already possible. That's going to be implemented, I believe, and in that way, I believe you'll be okay with the government seeing your name. Because they are currently already seeing your name, and that's we trust that.
So Mr. Lawowski, a New York regulator, he argued that we always have to increase regulation for new technology if it has a risk of of funding terrorism or funding drug trafficking. Mr. Yasu, to what extent is innovation worth an increased risk in safety and law breaking?
Can please?
If a government should governments always choose for more regulation over innovation, because you give up innovation, right?
Yeah.
But there should always be more regulation.
Yeah.
But then, how would to what extent would because the internet has also a lot of things. Should the government just have regulated the internet in its early days?
Yeah. So. We should act quickly before the government creates the regulation. That's why I did last year. Before Japanese government create law about ICO, we did our ICO. And then people realize that the ICO is really great one to develop the business. That's why I did. So government always don't think about the future, but just think about the risk currently and regulate them. So please act quickly and tell people how great the technology is. That's really important. So please act quickly, and you can do with technology because it can act very quickly.
Mr. Piero, same question.
I think I have a little bit different opinion. You know, I do think that there should be a balance. You know, obviously there should be a balance, not stifling innovation and etc. Concerning anti-money laundering or terrorism, you know, that is a concern. That is a legitimate concern, and we should think about how to embed it. You know, embed security and fraud aversion within the blockchain, because currently it has a lot of features that make it, you know, very good for buying weapons, etc. All these bad things. So I don't think that you know, I do think that the government does have a role to play still in it. They should not stifle it. They should not stop the full innovation. They should try to embed the features that they would like to see within the blockchain, or at least provide the conditions for other companies to do it. And then that will help AML. That will help, you know, financing terrorism. And you can do that. You can put, you know, whatever ID you have in your wallet right now, you can put it on a blockchain. And as long as the blockchain is secure, then it will be more secure than the current system we have right now. So, yeah.
Mr. Yasu, if blockchain will be implemented to its fullest potential, how would our society look?
I believe that the world is becoming more clean and how can I say, clean and a good one, such as like people really aim to maximize people's value. Now, many people are trying to make money, basically, like in company limited, people try to make just a revenue, but in cryptocurrency world, people try to maximize the value which the economy aims to realize. So I believe that the world is becoming more clean one. So people not only try to make money, but also try to create some new value to people. Yeah.
Mr. Preva previously mentioned that we will lose certain intermediaries if we accept the blockchain. But do you not think that this is the end base for a more dehumanized society if we put our full trust into technology instead of in humans?
Well, I think right now what we see is a world where individualization and polarization is actually rife. You know, it's increasing, and on a more social level, that's very disconcerting. I think that the blockchain is very non-tolerant. You know, once things are coded in, it's just becoming coded in, and that's it. There's not many wiggle room for context. So in that sense, it's becoming much more, let's say, a harsh society, and that's not necessarily what we want. But we do have to recognize that the benefits are larger in terms of empowering people. We have globalization, but we have globalization in terms of goods. We have globalization in terms of data, but we never had globalization in terms of value. All the different value systems that we have in terms of transferring money or identity or whatever is at the best level contained at the continent borders. So the United States, Europe, you know, Asia, we have a lot of trouble transferring value right now. It's not globalized. So this is just the final piece of the puzzle, and it's making, we have to be careful not to make it too harsh a society, but we have to be aware of that risk building it.
On a more psychological level, do you think humans can actually put that much trust into a technology?
I think we already are doing that. Yeah. You know, a lot of people use their smartphone to determine what the best restaurant is in town, or what the best hotel is or who they're going to marry. You know, a lot of people swipe left and right to meet their loved one. So in that sense, we're all so connected already to technology, and in that sense, it's just the next step.
Yeah.
And also, I think that the internet, when it was, when the World Wide Web was conceived, you know, the 90s, there's actually not many people know this, but there's actually a road to take, which is called a port in HTTP language, in the language that the World Wide Web is based on, and it provides the communication, that is made for payments. If somebody makes a typo, going to their newspaper website or whatever, makes a typo, you get a page not found message that has a code 404. If you search the one 402, you will find payment required. And the World Wide Web was originally built with the idea that we can pay each other through the World Wide Web. So 20 years ago, this was already, you know, something in the making. People wanted to do it. People envisioned a internet of value. And this is just the next step. So I believe that empowerment will be what we all need, what we all strive for.
Yeah.
Also for the 2 billion unbanked, all these aspects.
To conclude, there's still one more very important topic we have to discuss. Blockchain has the potential to make everyone take away the power from centralized institutions and deliver true equality. How is a tech with such an equalizing ideology, how is it so man-dominated? Mr. Yasu. How is it so man-dominated? It's how does it have such a male-dominated culture?
So
it's National Women's Day today, so we need to. No, it's a very important topic to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go first. I'm thinking my English.
Okay,
Jiang, your
that's fine.
opinion.
I'll go first. Well, I think it's a very, very important point. I think, the people who are studying now, I think, are much more used to an egalitarian society, and hopefully will make it even better and better. But we need a lot more people in tech in general, and also in computer science, and also in the blockchain world. And I think that's sort of a relic from the past, that a lot of male people were doing it. You know, when I was getting my degree in computer science 20 years ago, I was a geek. You know, I was please, you can get that table in the corner, and it was not that bad, but it was a very different reputation. And I think that reputation is now definitely changing. Their perception is changing. But we need a lot more people, need a lot more female people in the computer science space. And I think it's a very, very cool space. It's now, we see that the top companies are tech companies. So if you strive to be ambitious within the company space, in the private space, the technology gives so much potential, so much opportunity. So I encourage all female people to really study and learn coding, or at least understand it from a certain perspective, and get into it. It's really, really important that we get more female people in there.
Yeah.
Mr. Yasu, have you thought about your answer? Or?
Yeah, I think we have to, the old people who don't know about technology have to be taken place by young people who know about technology at this time. Yeah, so I don't know, it's the same situation here, but in Japan, old people don't know about technology at all. Yeah, they don't know. So the people have to learn a lot about blockchain and internet and something like that technology. And but the old people can't tell about the technology. So the teachers have to learn programming as well, I think. So we have to change the education for young people by change the teacher to the people who know the technology. Yeah, definitely.
That positive and revolutionary end note.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I think the interview has come to a conclusion. Next week, in exactly 2 weeks, we will have another interview with Mr. Eribol about voting behaviors and class distinctions. For now, please give a warm round of applause for Mr. Prevo and Mr. Yasu.
Thank you.